What's going on, guys? Matt here. So today we're looking at the Cold Steel Leatherneck. As you can see, very K-bar-like knife, Leatherneck SF. I think that stands for Semper Fi. So, very military styled knife, but really interesting. A lot of companies have their own styles of K-bar, right? And so we'll kind of do that as we get into size comparisons. We'll talk about that, like the Ontario SB1. Ontario even has like a leather stacked, like exact replica of a K-bar, but as you can see, it's a K-bar style knife. Real quick before we get into the rest of the size comparisons, remember to like and subscribe, guys. Getting close to 2,000 subscribers, so I really appreciate you guys doing that. So yeah, the Ontario Leatherneck. Let's look at a couple more size comparisons just so you guys can get an idea, but I think most of you have an idea of how big this knife is and the dimensions. Let's bring back the Ontario just real quick. So 7-inch blade, about a 5-inch handle or so. So yeah, nearly identical. That clip point, Bowie style blade, very similar. Not quite the same on that. You kind of have more of an upswept clip on there, which is more like the K-bar. All right, let's bring it up to comparison to a folding knife. You guys know the Rat One by Ontario. A couple Ontarios in this review, and another fixed blade you guys are probably familiar with. This is the more heavy duty. And yeah, that is a vinegar patina. Dude, this thing came out so freaking cool, man. It's just like a blackened blade. It also almost looks blued. I did a really, really long vinegar patina on this. And it just came out really, really cool. Anyway, 4-inch blade on that. You guys are familiar with Morris. This is the same size. It's just a little bit thicker than the other Morris. But 4-inch blade on that. And one more. This was a knife gifted to me pretty recently by a coworker, which was really cool. Just not a knife I've ever owned. It's one of the Opinels. These old twist style knives where you just open it up and that's the locking mechanism right there. But they just slice so beautifully with that full flat grind, really thin profile blade. These are really fun, really cool knives. So, but a lot of people are familiar with these, especially maybe some of our older audience, right? So let's talk about these specs. Then we'll talk about what I like, what I dislike, and something unique on the Cold Steel Leatherneck. So we're looking at 11.7 ounces, 5 millimeters thick on that blade thickness, which is pretty common for a Cold Steel fixed blade. Blade length is 6 3/4 inches, so just under that 7-inch kind of K-bar amount. This is made of D2, German D2 right there. New GSM Cold Steel logo right there. It has a Griv X handle that's 5 inches. It's just Grivery, right? Which is a plastic that behaves like rubber, I believe, is like when you look into what it actually is. Let me adjust the lighting real quick for you guys and get that a little bit more consistent, a little less shadows. There we go. Overall length 11 3/4 inches. It comes with a Secure X sheath, as most Cold Steel fixed blades do. We'll actually talk about this a little bit more in depth than I usually do. And to pick this up, you're looking at, it depends, around $70. They're on sale for like $50 on Amazon right now. And the best sales you'll find them for $50, but standard price is between like $60 and $70. And I'm not sure if I mentioned it, but it is 11.7 ounces. I might have mentioned that up top. Anyway, this also comes in a Tanto as well. They've made it in multiple different styles. They made it, I think, in SK5 and a full flat grind for the clip point version. And then I think they made it in 4116. Since have switched over to German D2. I don't know why they don't make more knives in D2, especially if they can put them out at this price. Dude, come on. They should be making way more. So let's talk about what I like. A lot of the things that come with a K-bar, are kind of echoed in this. Aside from maybe kind of the cool factor, the old school cool factor of like a leather stacked handle, and you just have kind of a part of history with an original K-bar. You don't have that with this, but the length of the blade, the profile of the blade, the style of handle, has a very similar kind of circular, ovular handle. And it also has that butt cap as well. There's kind of a higher positive to that, and I'll talk about it in a little bit. But yeah, so just the positives of a K-bar, which are the ergonomics, the looks, the overall kind of feel, all the same positives you'll see with the Leatherneck. Another thing that I think is fantastic, and I touched on it just briefly, D2 for even $100, this much D2 That's a lot of D2, guys. And Cold Steel is always fantastic with their heat treats. You can do so much good stuff with D2. You really can. Yeah, it'll rust. Not terribly. It's not 1095, but it still will rust. But you got this coating on this blade, so you know you're good to go on that point. But $50 for a hunk of D2, outstanding price. You know, great job, Cold Steel. I wish you would do some of your other fixed blades. You know, offer the SRK, offer the Recon Tanto. You know, offer a few in D2. You know, up the price just a little bit. I'd love to see that, and I think a lot of people would as well. Some people might say, you know, D2 is brittle. You know, if you want to use this as like a hard to use, you know, general utility, camp utility knife, it might be too brittle. It's possible. That's a relatively thick blade, relatively stout tip, especially with the Tanto. And I will get this out of the way real quick, guys. This is like the 4th Leatherneck I've owned. I trade them off, you know, I find something else I like, you know, that's how us knife guys are. So I'm kind of coming from experience with a lot of other Leathernecks. Some people might say, how do we really know you own those? I don't know, man. Like, believe me if you want to, it doesn't matter. Like, yeah, it's totally up to you if you want to believe me or not, but I have owned multiple other Leathernecks and I've used them quite a bit, and you can guess I've cut off that top guard probably 3 different times. But anyway, that's where I'm kind of coming from this review. This is just one I saw, you know, it was on sale on Amazon again. I'm like, oh, I'll pick one up. Anyway, so great job with the steel for that price. That's just a great job. And I think D2 is probably plenty tough for what you would use this knife for. It's not going to be as tough as 1095. It's not going to be as tough as 3V. Is it brittle? I don't know. It depends on what you compare it to. S90? No, it's not brittle in comparison to that. In comparison to 1095, sure, it's kind of brittle. So just expect of your knife what it was made to do, right? I think that the D2 is going to hold up plenty well for just about whatever anyone's going to put it through. Even some batoning through, you know, a few inches thick logs, I think it'll be perfectly fine. So, anyway, if you have a different experience with D2, let me know. I have seen D2 snap in fixed blades, so I think it can happen. But the way this seems to be heat treated seems to be good to go. So, another thing I like this, and I think I like this more over than the K-bar, is this has a thicker guard. The K-bar's guard is a lot thinner. I wish I still had a K-bar. Again, traded them off for different things. But yeah, this is probably twice as thick on the guard. It's kind of upswept. I like that. And it also has a thicker tang. Let's see if I can get this. It's kind of hard to see. Yeah, there we go. Sorry, I'm so close to the camera. Yeah, so that tang on the K-bar is more of a rat tang, and it's probably twice as thin as that. So, you know, this really doesn't taper down right here much. You know, it's going to taper down a little to get to that thickness. And then this is a steel, I believe. Feels like it's steel, not aluminum butt cap. If it is aluminum, it feels pretty heavy duty. So if you're going to do any pounding with this, I think it's going to hold up a lot better than the K-bar would. This is one of those things where, let's see, do I have anything on the table? No, I don't. I talk about like knives that have exposed pommels, and I like that. I think that's a good idea, but I would never want to pound like a tent peg stake in with it. This I would be okay with. You have a lot of surface area. It's about the size of a hammerhead, some probably bigger than some others. So I'd be okay with pounding that. Those knives are more for other stuff. You know, I've actually used them multiple times on the trail to like crack walnuts open. So hey, they do have their uses. Another thing I like is I just think this has a really good feel. It has a nice heft to it. It's a little bit heavier than the K-bar. Some people might not like that. But I think it's great. I think it adds just a little bit of kind of confidence in use. You know, they've updated the K-bar design, right? And K-bar's done this as well. You know, they have their, you know, grivery handled versions, but they're still rat tangs. You know, so this is like hey, we're going with the old kind of style, but we're going to update the steel. We're going to update kind of, you know, make it a little bit more sturdy to handle what people use knives for more so now, which is, you know, we just use knives harder, I think, than they used to back in the day. They just didn't have kind of the technology, or they didn't, you know, have the innovation at the time to use knives, be able to use the knives the way we do now, which is really tough in some cases. So anyway, I like this, I think, over the K-bar, if I'm honest. And last thing, you guys are going to be like, oh my gosh, Matt, make up your freaking mind. I know, last positive is the sheath. What? You hate Secure X sheaths. I know, dude, I have had such a tumultuous relationship with Secure X sheaths. So this one's really good. And I don't know if they've redesigned it from the old one. This just has a really good fit and finish to it. It locks in perfectly. This is how a polymer sheath should work. So you feel it starts to get tighter right there, and then it just snaps. Now, it's not impossible to get out. It's quite easy to get out. But this, no movement whatsoever. This is how you do a polymer sheath. This is really good. If we could get the consistency on the Secure X sheaths, just like this with all the other ones, my complaints would be gone. Yes, they do dull the blades over time. That happens with just about every type of material. If you rub it over something, it's going to dull it. Yes, maybe a little bit more with something like glass reinforced nylon, but still, this doesn't retain water. It's a durable sheath that will last forever. So if they can get that consistency on them, keep making these. Just get that consistency on there. So I like this sheath. I think it's really good. I think, again, with cold steels, and I will add this as a caveat, you really don't know with their Secure X sheaths anymore. You used to be able to be pretty confident that they were going to be good to go, but retention, all of that stuff is kind of all over the place. Now, this does have the new GSM cold steel logo. Sorry about that, guys. Right there, maybe the GSM has been kind of like, okay, we need to really get our sheath game going. So maybe they're getting on that, and we'll see, kind of in years to come if the sheaths are starting to look better. So, but good job. This is good. This fit and finish, everything looks good. I like this. And yes, that's crazy to say. Last thing, they used to have a cold steel logo right here on both sides, I think, or at least on one side. We already have it on the blade. I don't think we need it on the handle either. So, as well. So I like that they removed that. It's just kind of unnecessary extra branding that it just didn't need to be there. Okay, what do I not like about it? Well, here's the thing. I really like the Leatherneck. I always have. I've always preferred it, honestly, over the K-bar design just because of the added stoutness that it has. This one, unfortunately, came with an issue, and I'm just going to let you guys hear this. Yeah, so that's the guard, if you couldn't tell. So guards like these, what happens is there's this piece of steel, right? And that's milled out, and then the tang, it's placed up on it, and then, you have the handle set. Most of the time when you get a guard like this, at some point with a K-bar, with any sort of Bowie knife, this guard will eventually loosen up. And the reason that is because even if it's fitted perfectly, with this being, used to do light chopping or batoning or any sort of use, those tolerances are just going to wear over time, and it's not going to fit as tightly as it would, right? So eventually guards like this do get loose, and there are ways to mitigate that. People will stuff just tiny bits of, cloth in there, inject glue, stuff like that to keep it from rattling so much. But guards will loosen. It shouldn't be loose out of the box though, should it? So that's just kind of, yeah, that's not cool. I will say that's the only issue I've had on all the Leathernecks I've ever owned. That this was the only one that came with a loose guard out of the box. What probably needs to happen, and Cold Steel does this on their 1917 Bowie, is they weld their guard to the tang. So you don't get movement. It never loosens because it's welded to the tang. Now that's an extra step, obviously, in the manufacturing process, but I think that more companies should weld their guards to the tang. It just adds an extra sense of security. So that's just, you have a big fit and finish issue, and there's nothing more disappointing, I think, than pulling out a knife out of the box that you like because you've owned it before, or that you're going to, and there's just a big issue with it, right? This just kind of sucks. It's kind of disappointing. So I'll probably send it back and get a different one. And if I have the same issue, then you will be seeing another video about excuse me, guys, Cold Steel's fit and finish, and we might have to have a little conversation, right? So anyway, that's really the big issue. I really like everything about the Leatherneck, just about everything else. Sure, I wish it didn't have a top guard. Easily modified with a Dremel, though. Takes 5 minutes, so no worries on that. But I think it's an outstanding blade. Unfortunately, I have this fit and finish issue with this. I hope that's not indicative of all the new Leathernecks. I'm going to go out on a limb and say probably it isn't. But let me know in the comments, guys, if you've gotten a Leatherneck since the GSM takeover, which was about 2 years ago, and if you've had this issue, or maybe even you've had it before and I just haven't ran into it before. So do I recommend it? I'm going to say yes. I will say be wary, because I did get this one with the loose guard. You know, it might be a toss-up. This might be a common issue like it was with that Ontario. The grind issues are just really bad. But, you know, I'm going to say yes. It's an absolute recommend, or it's a recommend with the caveat of, hey, just be mindful that we could have some fit and finish issues, you know, to be determined. Anyway, guys, thanks so much for watching. Remember to like and subscribe. We will see you in the next video. Peace.